Bungie has completely changed the game with this Twab. There's a complete rework to so many exotic weapons, to so many perks. This is a crazy Twab. Let's go ahead and dive right in and get through all of this, all right? Gotta scroll to the very top. All right, this week at Bungie, okay, they talk a little bit about they're doing a crossover with Ubisoft, so look forward to those skins coming soon. And then they talk a little bit about Trials of Osiris, what's arriving. They got Exalted Truth hand cannon, Unwavering Duty Suro's Adept machine gun is coming next season of Trials, and then staying is Whistler's Wind Bow, Forgiveness Sidearm, Inquisitor, Burden of Guilt. Leaving is Aisha's Embrace, Good Riddance, and Reed's Regret, Rip. Iron Banner, what's arriving? We've got an auto rifle, Dark Decider, Ganora's Axe, Slug Shotgun, and then Allied Demand Sidearm, Roar of the Bear, Wise and Rebuke, Hero's Burden, Frontier's Cry, and Razor's Edge are all staying. And then what's leaving is the Forge's Pledge Pulse and the Riz Walker, double rip on that. The Nightfall, we are getting the Wendigo back, reprised Wendigo, and reprised Hung Jury. Feels good. What's leaving is the Silicon Aroma and the Duty Bound auto rifle. So keep that in mind and look at these ornaments we got here. There's one for each playlist, and then there's a fourth one here. I'm not sure what you're going to get this one from. I'm not sure if this is like open world or how you'd get that, but ornaments, that looks pretty good. Then we got weapon philosophy and the art of running div. So we're going to try and give you the TLDR on all of this. The first thing they talk about is shotguns. They're changing shotgun pellets so that each archetype has their own spread, and it's a consistent spread. Right now it's complete RNG. You shoot a shotgun, and the spread is random from each shot to shot. But now aggressive will look like this. Precision, lightweight, rapid fire, and slug will all have their own unique spreads, making things a little more consistent with shotguns, which is a good thing. Everyone should like that, I think. Next up, we'll talk about sidearms. They're nerfing Drang a little bit because it had a little too much range. Fusion rifles, they're nerfing main ingredient. Glaives, they're giving some buffs and some nerfs to glaives, so that way they have they can work with Syntheseps, Wormgod Crest, and Winter's Guile, and then they're reducing the damage from 75 to 67. Hand cannons, they're talking a bit about Rose coming back, and these are going to be all the adjustments to Rose. One thing to keep in mind is that it's going to have airborne effectiveness at 20 base, so it's going to have decent airborne effectiveness. I think if you paired that with an exotic armor piece that gave you a boost, you could probably jump around the air with it. Who knows? Blinding effect, we're going to talk about that a little bit. They adjusted weapon mods that increased the effects of weapon perks do not make for interesting decisions, so we made a long-term awaited, long request to change them. Dragonfly, Rampage, and Surrounded perks now have their spec mod behaviors enabled by default. And they had this new arc blind effect, which has significantly reduced screen brightness and less overall intrusive. Next up, they talk about perks, reworks, Air Assault getting a buff. It's going to have multiple stacks, and that will hopefully alleviate some of the issues that PvP players have with airborne effectiveness. We've got Headseeker getting a buff. We've got Encore getting a buff. We've got Seraph Rounds getting a little bit of a nerf because they're going to be more readily available starting next season. We've got Tunnel Vision and Kill Clip. They're going to be reproccable. Right now, if you have Kill Clip procced, you get another kill and you reload. You don't get Kill Clip again. But now it's going to be just continuously going. So they're going to nerf the damage of that to make up for that. So it's a buff and a nerf to Kill Clip. And the combination between those two perks is going to feel pretty good. Let me know if you like that change or not. And then they're adjusting the perk redirection as well, because obviously they're going to have the reprised weapons from Deep Sun Crypt. Then they go through a whole list of buffs right here. They wanted to make it so that Hake Breach Armament's origin trait can actually take down supers like Well and Bubble. So that will be really crazy to see. Gutshot Straight is getting a buff. Compulsive Reloader getting a buff. High Impact Frame intrinsic perk can be hard to use since it switches off with little movement. Now allows for a small amount of movement instead of turning off with any movement. Ambitious Assassin is getting a buff. Well-Rounded gets a buff. Recombination gets buffed. Zen Moment as well. And then as part of the Divinity this season, we're looking at other related hiccups, including Rewind Wounds, as it's pronounced by myself. And they're going to make that work with Rewind Rounds will work with Divinity, as it wasn't in the past. Genesis getting a buff. One Quiet Moment getting a buff. Gun and Run Origin Trait getting a buff. We've got nerfs now. Okay, the nerf section. Box Breathing is getting nerfed. Obviously, they're also bringing back Hung Jury, so they don't want it to have that break that TTK threshold, so rip that. In PvP, that was kind of what made that scout good. Unstoppable Forces getting nerfed, and 1-2 Punch getting nerfed as well. So 1-2 Punch, rip. And also they do mention Wormgod Crest getting a nerf, so that Void Titan Omega build is going to be not nearly as powerful. They're fixing some bugs here, and then they're going over enhanced perks that are all getting kind of a nerf and a buff and some small adjustments. Unrelenting, enhanced unrelenting, all of these are enhanced, right? Time payload. The one that does look interesting, explosive payload, will get +5 reload. They're all minor changes. Firing line, grave robber. This one could be interesting. Enhanced explosive light, add one more charge, stack caps at 7. That's pretty cool. Enhanced corner, cold steel, vorpal, genesis, flash counter, chain reaction, ambitious assassin. All of those enhanced traits are getting adjusted. Exotic reworks, okay? First we'll talk about Borealis, Hardlight, and Dead Messenger. These are the 3 exotics that have the alternative firing modes where they fire different affinities, Arc, Solar, and Void. And now they're going to have respective stat boosts to go with each affinity. So a buff to Dead Messenger, which is a rip in PvP, but we'll see how that goes. See if Hardlight's any good now, right? And then they talk about another buff to Borealis because it wasn't quite strong enough even after that change. And then they do a complete rework to Jade Rabbit. Looks interesting. I think it'll be a little bit stronger. Then they go over an entire chart here of weapon usage in PvE specifically. So you got Arbalist, Divinity, and Witherhoard, the most used exotics in PvE, which is pretty crazy to think about because Divinity, only one person on the fire team is going to have that. So, but multiple people can have Arbalist. So they're obviously going to bring some of that in line when they're that strong. And then they look at the weakest and least used exotics here. You can see Wave Splitter and Borealis in them. And then we got Witherhoard, Forerunner, Jotun, PvP exotic special weapon usage November 15th. So there you have it. Witherhoard's being used quite a bit, so they're going to do a harsh nerf to Witherhoard. 7.5 seconds was the current time it would sit on the ground. Now it's going to be 4.5 seconds. And Divinity, the nerf that we've already talked about, instead of it doing 30%, it's going to do 15%. You can still stack it with Tether, though, so keep that in mind. And then Arbalist is getting a little bit of a nerf, reduced body shot damage to match Lawrence Driver. And then Galahorn is getting a nerf to bring it in line with Legendary rockets. And Forerunner is getting a nerf as well because it's a little bit too strong. Now we're going over the buffs that they're having. And they've got the charts of the most used and least used exotic weapons here. You can see some of these. We've got Merciless in here, got Darcy. Lowest 20 exotic usage by owners. So these are the least used chart here. And then they basically say that they cherry pick through these and decide to buff some of these based on that. And we've got the buffs. There's a full auto setting coming to everyone. And so the exotics that have full auto on them are getting replaced catalysts and stuff. And then they're doing a big adjustment to Dead Man's Tail. Looks like it's a good one. And then Darcy's getting that big airborne effectiveness, and it's going to jolt targets when they're affected by personal assistant. Will that make Darcy good? Probably not. But it is interesting, I guess. It's a step in the right direction. Wishender does stack with apparently with Witherhoard. I didn't realize that, but they're going to increase that buff, so you probably want to use those two in combination on your fire team. And then they're increasing the airborne effectiveness of Whisper of the Worm to 80, so they'll have like perfect airborne effectiveness. Prospector is getting the added chain reaction perk, and Fourth Horseman is getting a reduction in recoil. Forerunner is getting a bunch of changes done to it in PvE, so be looking forward to that. And then Merciless is getting a charge time now hit resets on 5-second timer. This timer is refreshed when you land hits. So Merciless was one of the least used exotics. And Rat King, radius required to activate perk increased from 15 meters to 20 meters. Legend of Acrius, removed movement penalties. And Bastion, reduced spread angle by 6%. So Bastion buff right there. Get ready for that. All right. And going on to the next one, we got Quicksilver is getting a little bit of a buff. They wanted to start it off pretty weak before they buffed it. Cold Heart is getting an even stronger buff after it got that recent rework with ionic traces. Wow, words are hard. Grand Overture is getting increased missile damage by 50%. Grand Overture, we have to start melting some raid bosses with that. Xenophage, RIP Xeno, has been nerfed into the ground, but it's getting a small 5% buff. And it does roughly half its damage as impact damage, and the rest is detonation. So we'll see how strong it is after that. Adjusted Cloud Strike to work with Divinity as well. So we got Rewind Wounds and Cloud Strike working with the Div Cage. And then we've got Worm God's Crest getting their damage multiplier reduced from 7.5 to 3.5. So that plus the other melee reduction is going to be crazy. I think it was 1-2 punch that got nerfed as well. And then Winter's Guile also getting reduced. So rip that crazy Void Titan build. And Gerfalcon's Hauberk is getting a complete rework because it's so strong. It's just going to give you volatile rounds now instead of that crazy damage buff. They're doing a heavy weapon rebalance. What's the Lightfall DPS meta going to be? We'll see. Apparently they're trying something spicy. Who knows? Maybe we'll be shooting glaives at the Witness or whatever raid boss we get. Some tweaks to shotgun reticles and doing a subclass 3.0 verbs to add exotic weapons. Interesting. All right. A Void Hunter walks into the bar. They talk a little bit about Void and Hunter invisibility and changes to radar coming because invisibility is too strong. They admit that. So some changes to the radar. We'll see if that helps in the future. Season 19 artifact mods. We have anti-champion mods for hand cannons, scout rifles, bows, pulse rifles, auto rifles, and submachine guns, as well as unstoppable grenade launcher. We've got passive guard that works with glaives and a reprisal of breach and clear to interact with Void 3.0 rework. Seems pretty exciting. Let me know in the comments if you're excited about that one. And then we've got the 3 Arbalist ornaments that we get to vote for. Which one do you think looks the best? Pretty cool to have a community event like that. And then we got the Prime loot, and that's pretty much everything. Got a list of known issues. And we got the movie of the week and then the artist of the week, as per usual. A lot of crazy changes. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Which ones are you looking forward to the most? It's going to completely change all the different god rolls for each weapon. And kind of looking forward to it. I think it's definitely overdue. Let me know if you like those changes or not. Make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed. I'll keep you up to date on all the news in Destiny 2. Smash the like button. See you in the next one. Later.